Hello, Muslim friends, and welcome back to the Islamic Circles channel. Did you know that tensions in Europe and America have still not subsided? Now, Japanese citizens are also holding large-scale protests rejecting Muslim immigrants. A big question has emerged. What is actually happening with Muslim immigrants? Why did they choose to come to non-Muslim countries when their goal is to continue practicing Islamic law? Even in China, Islam is considered a mental illness. Is the world entering a new phase of global rejection toward Muslims? Watch the full video only on Islamic Circles. The unrest that has not subsided in Europe and America has been the focus of global attention in recent years, especially regarding the increasing wave of Muslim immigration. Initially, their arrival was seen as part of humanitarian policies, providing asylum for refugees from conflict regions, opening job opportunities, and enriching cultural diversity. However, the reality is far more complicated and has created tensions that cannot be ignored. In various major cities in Europe such as Paris, Berlin, and London, protests continue to erupt. Many local residents argue that the presence of Muslim immigrants has significant social impacts, from rising crime rates to noticeable cultural differences and demands for special rules related to halal food, clothing, and religious practices. A similar situation is also occurring in America, where Muslim immigrants are increasingly expressing their religious identity in public spaces, triggering resistance from nationalist groups. Government policies that are seen as too lenient have only worsened the situation. Meanwhile, right-wing political parties in Europe are calling for the closure of doors to Muslim immigrants. Anti-Muslim rhetoric is growing stronger on the political stage, especially ahead of elections. All of this creates a deepening atmosphere of distrust between local residents and Muslim immigrant communities. This phenomenon shows that the issue of Muslim immigration is not only about economics or politics, but also touches on aspects of identity, culture, and religion. Europe and America, once considered centers of tolerance, have now become the main arenas of rejection toward Muslims. Ironically, amid the unresolved tension, the world has been shocked by a new wave of protests emerging far away in East Asia, Japan. Japan is known as a country that strongly preserves its social and cultural homogeneity. Unlike Western nations that are more open to migration, Japan tends to close itself off from the entry of large numbers of immigrants. Official data shows that only a small portion of Japan's population consists of immigrants. The majority of its citizens are native Japanese, creating strong ties to national identity and ancestral traditions. In this context, the arrival of Muslim immigrants is seen as a potential threat, not only because of their numbers, but also because they bring a different value system, especially related to Islamic law. Japan is accustomed to uniform rules of life, where society adapts to common norms to maintain harmony. Meanwhile, Muslim immigrants often demand special facilities, prayer rooms, halal food availability, freedom in specific clothing, and the application of religious rules that are viewed as conflicting with local culture. These concerns have grown as issues of crime and terrorism in Europe and America become points of comparison. Japanese local media widely report how Europe is now struggling to meet the demands of Muslim communities. As a result, Japanese society is beginning to believe that if they do not act early, similar problems could arise in their own country. Recent waves of protests in Tokyo and several major cities show how serious these concerns have become. Thousands took to the streets carrying banners rejecting the arrival of Muslim immigrants, urging the government to tighten visas, or even close the doors to citizens from Muslim-majority countries. This phenomenon reflects Japan's desire not to repeat the mistakes that occurred in Europe and America, given its highly homogeneous and disciplined society. They prefer to prevent problems early rather than face potential conflict in the future. An interesting phenomenon has emerged regarding the decision of Muslim immigrants to move to non-Muslim majority countries. Amid growing protests in Europe, America, and now Japan, a question arises that is difficult to ignore. If their main goal is to practice Islamic law, why do they choose to live in countries that do not implement Islamic law? Many Muslim immigrants depart with hopes of finding safer, more stable, and more prosperous lives. Western countries and Japan offer education, healthcare, and economic opportunities that may be difficult to access in their home countries. However, after settling, some of them attempt to implement religious practices in public spaces, requesting halal food in schools, scheduling prayer times at work, or refusing to adapt to local dress norms. These actions often trigger tension with local communities. Local residents argue that if Muslim immigrants want to follow Islamic law strictly, they should choose countries with Muslim majorities. The fact that they come to non-Muslim countries and then request adjustments is seen as excessive demands. This strengthens the stigma that Muslim immigrants are unwilling to integrate and instead want to bring their own laws and culture into the new country. In Japan, this situation becomes even more complex. A nation that deeply upholds uniformity to maintain social harmony often finds it difficult to accept groups that request special rules that disrupt existing balance. In this country, demands that might be considered normal elsewhere are viewed as serious threats. Questions within Japanese society have grown sharper. If immigrants do not want to adapt to local culture, why do they choose to live here? This question has become the main fuel for the rising anti-Muslim immigrant protests in Japan. The world seems to be sending a message. There is significant tension between Islamic identity and non-Muslim nations. The question now is, where will this historical trajectory lead us? Will Muslims find ways to adapt and be accepted, or will they become increasingly marginalized by a global system that rejects their presence? This is a crucial moment to open our eyes because this issue is not only about immigrants, but also about cultural, religious, and civilizational clashes that may shape the future of the world. What do you think? Is the world truly moving toward an era of global rejection of Muslims? Or is this merely a temporary political cycle that may eventually subside? What are your thoughts? Write them in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.